Jumping right into this makeup routine, I'm going to start off with my skin prep, and I've already used my face wash. I'm just going to go in with these MEDIHEAL toner face pads, and they kind of have like an exfoliating texture. I just go in and I like to focus this in my nose area, basically anywhere where my skin would kind of flake. I let that dry down and I move on to my moisturizer. This is a Korean base or Korean skincare product, and I highly recommend trying out this moisturizer if you have not. Again, I will have everything listed in the description box below. After working that in, I'm going to move into prepping my brows using the e.l.f. brow gel. I like to prep my brows during or after I prep my skin, even though I do fill in my brows last. I just like to know that the brow gel has dried down completely by the time I go in to fill in my brows, because if you don't allow that brow gel to dry down, your brow pencil is just going to glide right off. Like, the product is not going to stay on your eye. You're going to be wondering, like, why am I putting on eyebrow pencil and it's not showing? Because your brow gel has not dried down. Moving on to primer, I'm going to be using the Milk Hydro Gripping Primer. I like to use this primer mostly in the summer and spring, just to make sure that my makeup does not shift with just being out and about or like in the sun. And I'm going to use my hands to go in and just blend all of this in. I know some girls use like a flat makeup brush. I find it easier just to use my fingers, so I go in with some clean hands. You want to make sure your hands are clean and just blend in that primer. And as y'all can see, I'm really focusing it in the areas where I will be adding concealer with the routine that we're doing. And after you do the stick test, baby, you're good to go. Moving on to concealer, I am going to be going in with the e.l.f. concealer, and I'm going to be following this map. This is basically the layout that we're doing. So we're going to go in with concealer first. Like I said, we're not going to be just caking on our layers and layers of products. Since it is summer, I want to try to use the least amount of products as possible. We are using foundation, but it'll only be in the perimeter of the face. So I'm going to go in with my concealer shade that is the closest to my skin tone or my undertone, and I am just going to map that out, and this is how it should look. Moving on to foundation, I'm using the NARS foundation, and I'm just going to squeeze a little bit of that out in the perimeters of my face. And once we start to blend this out, we are actually going to blend it towards the concealer. So where the concealer ends is where the foundation will meet, if that makes sense. This is where we should be. And I like to let my concealer sit. That is why I did the concealer first and then went in and added the foundation. Once I feel like my concealer has dried down, I can start to now go in and blend that out. And I like to kind of focus in on the edge parts or the outer parts of the concealer. I don't go under my eye like immediately with this first shade, because we are going to go in with a second shade of concealer. So for this first shade, we just want to focus on blending out the edges. So that is going along my cheek area and down the bridge of my nose, my chin, my forehead. We're going to do all of that. Remember, we're not going to blend out the concealer in the under eye just as yet. We're not going to do that yet. Moving on to the foundation, we're just going to go in and start to buff and blend that foundation into that concealer. And I just love the way this NARS foundation pairs with this e.l.f. concealer. Everything kind of gives a very dewy skin-like finish, and that is what I like in the summertime. I just like dewy in general. I really don't purchase any matte finishing products, whether that's concealer or foundation. I just don't like a matte finish look, so all of my products are dewy finish. And we're just going to keep blending this foundation in to where I don't see any more skin. It's just now foundation and concealer. Now we're going to go in and just do a dab of this brighter shade of concealer. This is just to brighten up the under eye. And while that's it, we're going to move on to contouring. I'm using the Curve case, and I am just going to pat a little bit of that into my face. I don't want like a harsh contour. I want it to be very, you know, very natural looking, just with a hint of contour, but I don't want it really sharp or really dark, so I'm not going to go in with too much of that. And for that same palette, we're going to go in and use the blush, and I'm just going to add this in my cheek area. Now when it comes to cream blush, sometimes it is possible that you may pick up too much of the product, and normally when that happens, I'm going to show y'all, I'm just going to take my brush and flip it to the side where there is no product and use that side to blend out instead of adding more product before blending it out. And I like to do this step while that other shade of concealer is sitting and kind of, you know, so I can have that coverage when it comes to blending. And I like to go ahead and get my powders ready for setting my under eye before I blend out my concealer. I cannot stress that enough. You want to have it already open and ready out of the container. Now I'm going to go in and blend out that brighter shade of concealer, but we're not going to drag it. We're just going to keep it in the inner corner. Again, we're not going to drag. We're not going to take it all the way out like we did the first shade. We're just going to focus it in the inner corner. And I like to go back in with my blush brush and kind of like go back over my blush area because the concealer kind of made it look like a line. And I just go back in with the product that's left and go back over that same area. Going in to set my face, I'm going to be using a brush, and then I like to go in with a powder puff and kind of make sure I focus in my inner corner to make sure there's no creasing. That is why I go back over it with the powder puff. And as y'all can see, I started to see that my under eye was creasing, so I went back in and kind of blended that out again with the same brush I used to blend it the first time. And now I'm going to go in and set. You don't want to set any creasing, so when it comes to your under eye, if you do see any creasing while you're doing or setting the other side, just pick up that concealer brush and blend it out again, and then you can go right in and start to set with your powders. And yeah, I'm gonna move on and just set everywhere I put that concealer, in my forehead area, down the bridge of my nose, in my chin area, and above my lips. And I kind of just take what's left and go over my brows. Moving on, I'm going to be going in with a powder foundation, and this is made by Fenty Beauty. I chose this shade because it is the closest shade to my foundation, and I am going to be using this as like a bronzer, or where you are with bronze. I'm just gonna go in and just cover anywhere I put that liquid foundation. I'm basically going to go back over those same areas with my powder foundation just to set it. Anything that you do with the cream, you must set with the powder. So that is what we're doing here, and it's also adding that color back into my face as well. And yeah, I'm just going to keep doing this and building it up to my likings. Moving on, I'm going to go ahead and just brush off the excess powder that was sitting in the under eye. I like to do everything to where the products have enough time to kind of set in and work and do what it needs to do. So from here, I am then going to move on and get ready to contour my nose, and I'm going to contour using that same foundation powder and just, you know, add a little definition to the nose. In the summertime, I do not cream contour my nose. In the winter, I do, but again, we're trying to use the least amount of products as possible. And I found that when I do contour my nose with just using a powder, it's more soft, and that is what I want in the summer. I don't want a very harsh makeup contoured face. So yeah, this is my routine, and I'm just going to drag that up into like my brow area. And moving on, we're going to set our cream blush with a powder blush, and I am using the JUVIA Place, and I'm just going to go in with a blush brush, and I like to mix these two shades, and we're just going to build it up to our likings. There is no particular amount of blush. You don't have to mix any shades. I just found that in summer, if I mix those two, it gives me that very subtle pink kind of look, which is what I like. And we're gonna move on to setting our face. I used some e.l.f. setting spray, and y'all, I am going to go in with a little bit of highlight. I dropped this literally the same week that I purchased it, and I said I was gonna get another one, but I haven't. I just been using it like this, and I'm just going to just highlight those areas where the sun would hit my face to give me that glow effect.
That is it for my makeup base routine. Now, if I'm being completely honest, my base routine switches up a lot depending on the season, what products I'm using, you know, what's going on. But as of right now, as of today, as of lately, this has been my summer makeup routine. I've been trying to use the least amount of products as possible because I don't want a very cakey face, but I do want full coverage. I will have all of the products that I'm using linked down in the description box below, as well as all of the shades. Nevertheless, thank you all for tuning in. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And if you haven't, tell a friend to tell a friend to send it to a friend. And we're not paying nobody to do our makeup no more. It's 2025.
I touch that fire for you. I do that 3-4 times again.